So right off the bat, opening Revit 2025, you get the typical Revit home, but you will see a new toggle here, new Revit home. We'll go ahead and hit that. Visually, this looks the same, but there are a lot of new options here. So you do have a list view here that definitely shows a lot more information. You also have a search bar here at the top, which is really nice. And you also have some filters. I really like the way they have this set up, even coming down to families and models. You did always have that option here on the side, but it's always nice to be able to get to a certain area and then also be able to filter that after the fact. You do have Autodesk projects. This is replacing the BIM 360 tab on the regular home page. Very similar to that, you will be able to access your projects, but in a different visual way. I really like the way this kind of looks. It's a lot more organized. It gives you a lot more information. When you're in list view, you get things like modified date, modified by, published status, published dates, etc. There is a scoreboard here so you can see all of the options you get here now. There is the filter, and then there is the view online options, refresh, and you can go to the settings. So a lot more options now, a way better way to organize your projects. This is a really nice step. I feel like I'm gonna leave this toggled on forever now. But yeah, give it a try. The one thing you want to note is you will need to turn on the options to see the projects. So you want to be able to go to your options tab on the bottom here, show projects and Revit software version and new home. So go ahead and click that to make sure you see all your projects. This one is one that I really like. I think it's going to be pretty powerful and really nice to use. It's called Sheet Collections. So on the project browser under Sheets, you can right click there. You get the new option Sheet Collection. You can name it whatever you want. Once it's created, you can add several views to this and they go into the collection. That has always been possible through organization, but this kind of takes it to the next level. So one of the first things that this is going to be allowing the user to do is actually create views with the same number. So I'll go ahead and create a new number here, a new sheet. As you can see there, I actually created A101, even though A101 had already existed there. So that's really nice. I can definitely see myself using that for a lot of different scenarios. I remember working back in historical building projects where there's multiple phases, or even scenarios where the owner comes back 5 years later and you are using the same Revit file, but it might be a whole new set of projects. So you want new drawings. This collection will allow you to do that, to be able to create that all into one Revit file. Part of me wanted to find a way to add these to collections faster. The projects can get pretty big, so dragging them all the time might not be the fastest way to go. The nice thing is there is a property parameter for the collection. It is right there. So then I also thought if it's there, then I can technically make a schedule and be able to add it there. Not sure if it's faster, but I'm sure we can also make a Dynamo to be able to do that faster. But the fact that it is a parameter will make it, we'll definitely find a way to make that faster. It's pretty nice. I'm sure a lot of people are going to start using this once they are able to see how powerful it can be. But I know I'm going to use it. So this one's going to be heavy on the family editor side. It's about arrays. So historically, when you have an array like these chairs are, you were never able to go down to 0. So now they made that change to be able to do that. As you can see, they all go away. And you can also do 1 now as well. Previously, we're not able to do that. You would get a warning error message that says you were not able to go down to that value. There was always workarounds to be able to create some additional parameters with some formulas to be able to control it through visibility and a lot of other things. So this is definitely going to make it a lot easier. It's not going to be something that all the users are going to realize, but for those of you making families, you're definitely going to enjoy this one. So one of the new features they've added is the way to be able to align multiple texts. So if you're working on a section like this, I'm sure all of you know how much of a pain it is to get it all aligned and how much time you spend making sure it's spaced correctly and formatted correctly. Well, they've added a way to be able to help you with that. So I have several different items here. So the bottom two are keynotes. These are text, and I added a wall tag. So the theory is that we can select all of these together, and they've added multiple align options here. So if I want them all to the right, there you go. One thing I noticed is that the keynotes sometimes don't align as well as everything else, but you can see that the text aligned really well. The tag actually aligned better than I thought I was going to. One of the other options you can also do is to steer it vertically. So I click that, you can tell all of them are spaced correctly. That one's definitely nice. I'm gonna be using that one for sure. But there's several other options here: top, middle, bottom, left, center, right, horizontally. So give them a try. I think it's definitely gonna be a time saver. I feel like I could have used this in so many different situations that I'm glad they finally did it. So there's a new way to be able to handle wall wrapping in Revit 2025. So if you select the wall that ends on a wrap, like this condition here, you do have a new icon to be able to disallow end wrapping or allow it back on. One thing to note is you do have to have wrapping allowed here in the property box. So if you have none and you select that same wall, you can see the icon is gone there. But if I turn it back on, you'll be able to see it's there. So it's definitely a quicker way to be able to handle that. I really like the way that works out. It's kind of like the join here at the side. But I'm definitely going to be using that one. Give it a try. So last year we got Topo Solid as a new system family. This year they've added a couple new tools to that system. This one we'll talk about is Excavate. So when you click this button, you're allowed to select floors, building pads, roofs, and other Topo Solids to be able to create that excavation. So I click on that tool, you can see it only lets me select those items. So I can select this floor, that floor. One of the first things you'll notice is now the Topo Solid is right up against that wall. Unfortunately, you cannot select walls, which seems to be a miss. But we can probably extend that floor and be able to deal with that condition there. Similar here, the floor didn't extend all the way past the Topo Solid, so we have that condition there. All stuff that can be addressed, but things to keep in mind when you're drawing floors. So I can go around and select all my floors here. You can see it cuts it out. There is a floor here. There we go. Again, there's a foundation wall right in the middle there. The floors don't extend past it. So now I'm going to have to change that floor and be able to address that condition. But once you're done with all your excavation, you can select the Topo Solid, go all the way to the bottom here. You have the excavation volume. Let me expand this here. And then the individual volume. So you can go through here and look at all the floors and the excavation volume, which is pretty nice to be able to have that information, especially individually like this. It's definitely the way I would like to see that information. So give it a shot. It seems to be working pretty well right now, and I'm sure it's going to be very useful here. So we got Topo Solids as a new system family last year in 2024. A new tool they've added to that system is Simplify Topo Solids. So as you are familiar, a Topo Solid is made out of several different points here. This one isn't that complicated, but you can see there are a lot of points still all over. So they've added a way to clean this up a little bit, to not take up that much memory, have a little bit more performance, and hopefully not affect the layout that much. So you can select the Topo Solid, select Simplify Topo Solid. The recommended is 80% here. It's all adjustable. You can do anything you like. If you do 80%, you can tell that the difference is not that crazy. So you'll see a little bit changes here. It cleaned it up pretty nicely, it looks like, without affecting it too much. Just to go crazy here and see what it can do. If you do 1%, which would be the lowest, you can tell very different there. It still kept overall shape, but obviously that's due to the points that it has remaining there. But that's probably the extreme scenario. Just to kind of play around with this, let's do 20%. Okay, a little more changes there. I would probably say 80% is enough. Again, this one is real simple, but I'm sure there's more complicated Topo Solids that you can simplify and not have that much of a effect to the overall geometry of it. Give it a try. So Topo Solids have been around since Revit 2024. They now added a way to be able to add it to a mass surface. So you do have that option now here, Topo Solid by face. You can select that. You can select the face of the mass, create Topo Solid, and there you go. So that has been added there. It's just another way to be able to add the Topo Solids to your project. Give it a try. So last year in Revit 2024, we got Topo Solids. So we're able to accurately show the site there. With more accuracy comes all these little edges here. It's very accurate, but it's not always needed for all your views. So what they added this year is a way to be able to show the smooth surface on your views. So there's a new button here. You do get a little warning letting you know what's about to happen. You can see here it's going to show up in shaded, consistent colors, textures, and realistic visual styles. So you can go ahead and hit close there. You might have noticed there this surface got a little bit more smooth than what it was before. It does show pretty nicely there. This isn't as complicated of a site, so it's not that big of a change, but I'm sure it's definitely going to help out with performance, and especially with those views that don't necessarily need it all. You'll be able to navigate them through the faster with this option on. I think this is definitely going to be an option that I'm going to always keep on. We'll show the site accurately when we need to, but I think for most of the times when we're drafting, this is all we need to be able to show. We're going to the material browser for this one. If anyone has ever been scrolling through the material browser looking for a material, you would notice that there's a little update there. As you scroll through different materials, different patterns, you constantly get that updating there until it actually renders correctly. So they added a new feature here called Quick. So with this one, it's a simple view here, but you can click around here and it constantly changing, updating very quickly. It's very fast to be able to look through materials now. I like this a lot. They used to have something similar a few versions behind, but it's nice to be able to have this, to be able to find what you're looking for in a quick way. Once you get there, you can always have the option to actually show the rendering, but just scrolling through constantly having it update, it's really nice to have that quick option there to be able to find it. So this one's a small one, but I think it's going to be one that a lot of users are going to like. In Revit, when you open up a property box, like the family property box, you can always expand this window and it's going to remember that size, but it never remembered the column widths. So now that feature has been added, I can move this around. It's going to remember that, and when I open another family here, it has that saved. So now I get to see all this information. I typically like a lot of value space there on the width. The parameter names aren't usually that long, but there's usually a lot of information here in the values. So this is really nice. I really like the way this turns out, and definitely going to be using this one. So on this one, we're going to the material browser. It's a simple one, but one that's going to be pretty useful. You can now make a selection, hold down the shift button, select again. All of these get selected, and you can right click and hit delete now. For the longest time, that was not possible. You had to delete one by one. So this is definitely going to be useful now to be able to clean up your materials in your projects. There's a new option for all the property boxes. You can see it down here. If I select the family, you see it here in the instance property box. I can go A through Z, so that changes all of these parameters and organizes them alphabetically. Z through A. It also is part of the type property box. So it's down here. As you can see, it remembered my option there. I can go back to default if I want to, and be able to use that there. It is also part of the views property box. It remembered my last selection there, so it stayed Z through A, but I can use default. I can go back to A through Z. There's a part of me that likes this. There's maybe an old school part of me that says I have memorized this order. I don't need this option, but I feel like it is most likely the better way to view it, and I think I'm going to find myself clicking A through Z at some point here soon. We'll see how long leaving in the default will last, but I think I'll give myself at least a couple weeks. We'll see. This one is about room perimeter calculation. So if you select a room, you have the perimeter there. It should be counting all of this around the room. Honestly, for a long time, I knew that there was something off with this and I haven't trusted it, but they've done a lot of new work to it and it's definitely worth another look. So one of the things they discovered is any inner loop, something like this here, will not calculate correctly. So they've addressed that, and we are actually going to change this group. For some reason, the walls are not room boundary walls. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make them all room boundary. Save that. So then, in theory, the room perimeter should be significantly higher. There we go. The other thing they've looked at is circles. So that calculation has also been addressed. Definitely worth taking another look. I think like many architects were skeptical of it working correctly, but it looks like they're definitely making some improvements. It's worth looking at and making sure it's working correctly. And if it is, it's going to be a great tool to use. So this one is about being able to join two walls that are next to each other in a faster way. So typically when you have a wall condition like this, where you might have a stair that has a concrete wall enclosure, each level might have different finishes on it. So you want to address that as a separate wall. you are able to now join those walls together. So you can technically have this condition where those walls are working independently from each other. But now when you draw a new wall, you have two new options: auto join, which is just going to join them together. It might be possible to still move them, but you'll get the error to unjoin the geometry. And then auto join and lock. So that's going to lock them together so they'll move independently. So let's start off with auto join. We'll draw that there. Now if I try to move this one, you can see it didn't get locked there. Let's delete that one. Try auto join and lock. So now if I draw that, you can see they're going to move together as one. There's probably things above this that are moving, but you can see there that I can now manage both of them as if they were one. The other thing to note is now that this is in place, I can also add a door to this, and the door will cut both walls, as you can see there. Pretty nice tool. This is something that was always possible to join and lock, but it's a nice way to be able to do that all in once and have that as a default for all my walls from now on. So if you ever had multiple pieces of text like we do here, so we can grab that one. This one seems to be center justified. This one's right justified, another center justified. We can now all arrange them all at once. So if I want to the left, I can do that to the left all at once. Center, right. To the right seems to be all the right answer, but we can do that all at once now. So that's a quick, nice one to be able to add there, just adding more powerful tools to the text tools. So last year in 2024, Revit introduced dark mode for the toolbar, the property box, the views, but they were missing schedules. So this year they were able to get that completed, and we can take a look here. So you can see dark mode schedules there. One thing to note is if you do have color in your schedule, they do transfer over. So if you see this in light mode, you can see that there's grays and whites there. If I convert it back, you can see that there's a brown tone and a darker tone there as well, kind of separating those rows there. Seems pretty nice.